I don't want to make this video. I really don't want to make this video, but I got to. As much optimism as I could put out there, as much hopeful energy I could put out there, I also got to be balanced with my energy. And while I think this team could be really good, I have to tell you every reason why it's possible that the 2023 season can be another big, fat failure for the Cleveland Browns. But before I talk about that, let's talk about something that's not a failure, and that's DraftKings, the sponsor of today's video. The NFL season's almost here, and I'm not sure about you, but my Sundays are starting to look like this. Me in my favorite team's jersey, parked in front of the TV all day. And I've partnered up with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the NFL, to bring all new customers an exciting new way to get in on the action. New customers download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use my promo code WORSTTAKE, bet just $5, and boom, $200 in bonus bets instantly. So don't wait any longer. Get some skin in the game and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. I said it. I'll say it again. New customers who bet just $5 on any wager get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays. Combine multiple bets together from the same game for a shot at an even bigger payout. And if sports betting is not available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and still have a shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code WORSTTAKE, bet $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Again, use promo code WORSTTAKE, all one word, bet $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Again, that's promo code WORSTTAKE only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Let's talk about every reason the Browns can fail in 2021. I know. There are some of you guys who are actually like excited about this video because like there's a section of the fan base that hates the team, which I don't know how people live like that, but that is a section of people that exists. So one, let's get the obvious thing out the way. Injuries can ruin any season. No team is immune to it. It is random. It happens every year. A team gets decimated by injuries. And it's always a concern of ours. Nobody wants it to happen to their team. It's the worst way for it. Well, it's in some ways, it preserves your ego about your team being good. You know what I mean? Like you don't got to go out there and see your team be healthy and look like cheeks. So like you're preserved that if you're the injury riddled team, but it sucks because all you can think about all season is, man, what could have been? So knock on wood, we know that's a possibility, but I'm not going to fill this video up talking about injuries. That would be dumb. That would be, come on now, that'd be a waste of your time. What reasons what things on this team could implode the season? I got 4. They're vague, but I'll talk about it. Quarterback play, left tackle play, or just tackle play in general. Too little, too late. Not explosive. Let's start with quarterback play. Hey, just like when I hyped y'all up, talk about the Super Bowl, it can just as easily go the other way. And what I mean by that is this season's going to ride on the play of Deshaun Watson. If he is who we thought he was in 2019 and 2020, people are going to feel really good about where this team's going. But if he's who everybody else thought he was in those 6 games, if this is more Russell Wilson than young Deshaun Watson, we're in trouble. We're in big trouble because We know the history of this team. We know the story of this roster, the story of this core. They're only going to go as far as the quarterback can take them. Now, this defense might be good enough and this team might be well coached enough that Deshaun Watson doesn't play well and they still go over 500 and maybe make the playoffs. But let's be honest here. If Deshaun Watson is not looking like the best player on the offense, if Deshaun Watson doesn't look like one of the best 3 players at the very least on the offense, we're going to be very disappointed because we know in the back of our heads, there's a ceiling on where you can go with that. We know in the back of our heads that you got rid of Baker Mayfield and reset this whole timeline because you thought that that ceiling wasn't going to be the same with Deshaun Watson. Now, there's a couple of things that can happen because Deshaun Watson's not going to turn into Baker Mayfield. But a real concern you can have is, hey, the last time Deshaun Watson played was in 2020. Since 2020, the standard for quarterback play has risen dramatically, right? When Deshaun Watson made his 3 Pro Bowls, there was a season where Case Keenum and Nick Foles were in the NFC Championship game with Blake Bortles on the other side. The standard for what amounts to top 5 and great quarterback play has changed. And maybe Deshaun Watson gets back to 2020, 2019 form. But what if we find out that Deshaun Watson's 2020 form, if it happened in 2023, would just be kind of above average? It's a possibility. It's not one that I'm going to bet on, but I also think that we haven't thought about how much the landscape has changed and how much the bar has changed for what constitutes elite quarterback play. It's risen since Deshaun Watson has played his last full season. And I've said this all along. In order for Deshaun Watson to be an elite quarterback, I firmly believe that he's going to have to play better than he did in 2018, 2019, or 2020. I thought he was on the cusp of elite quarterback play, but not necessarily an elite quarterback yet. Young player on the rise. So even if he was elite in 2020, it wouldn't mean much because the landscape has changed. It's gone up since then. And since I feel like he was on the cusp, I'm wondering, hey, where does he land if he's just what he was in 2020? Is that really enough? What if he's slightly worse than 2020? Is that enough? It's something to think about. Baker Mayfield's 26 touchdown year in 2020 or 25 touchdown year, we were calling him top 12, or that was a top 12 quarterback season for Baker Mayfield. You throw that same season in 2024 or 2023, that might be top 20, might be top 20. The bar's risen. Is Deshaun Watson ready to meet that bar? We don't know the answer to that. We know that he's better than any quarterback that the Browns have had so far in camp, but what's that mean? Because the Browns have had nobody who's met that bar yet. So it can be a concern. Let's talk about the tackles. The 2 parts of this offensive line that you have slight concerns about: Jed Wills, more so than anybody. Jack Conklin, less so, mainly because of injuries, even though the more we see DeJuan Jones, the more comfortable we feel if there is an injury or anything with the Browns' ability to make up for that. But the Jed Wills thing, while I feel like it's overblown, it's not a situation that comes from nothing. People aren't just picking on Jed Wills because Jed Wills is an elite player and people just bored. People pick on Jed Wills because he gives them stuff to pick on. I think they overblow it, but he does give them stuff to pick on. He doesn't finish blocks sometimes. His body language is terrible. He's not the greatest run blocker in the world. These are things that are true. Another thing that's true is that Deshaun Watson gets sacked a lot. He got sacked, 20 times in those 6 games he got back? He got sacked a ton in Houston. Whether the offensive line was good or bad, he got sacked a ton. This is just a fact of how he plays quarterback, it's going to happen. Part of it is because he takes these long steps. He's a very lanky guy. He takes these long steps and he tends to blow his tackle depth. Even when he had one of the most athletic tackles in the NFL in Laremy Tunsil, he would blow Laremy Tunsil's tackle depth. And Jed Wills is not as good as an athlete as Laremy Tunsil. There's a concern that combination right there, Deshaun Watson's play style and how he plays in the pocket, sometimes making him more vulnerable for a sack, and Jed Wills not being the most adept to finish a block at times, could be a combination that can derail this season. And it doesn't have to result in injury. And again, knock on wood, hope no injuries, but it doesn't have to result in injury for it to derail the season. You know how a sack derails the season? It puts you behind the sticks. Look at every offensive drive that you're unhappy with the play calling. It's because they fell behind the sticks. Falling behind the sticks ruins offensive drives, ruins good offenses. Most teams fall behind the sticks because they get penalties. They're undisciplined. They get holding, procedural penalties, puts them behind the sticks, ruins drives. The Browns can get behind the sticks because Deshaun Watson takes sacks, and that's the worst way to get behind the sticks because you lose it down. Is that combination going to be tightened up? Is Jed Wills going to make the improvements that he needs to not be a turnstile in a situation that would be hard for any tackle, especially a tackle like Jed? And is Deshaun Watson going to make the adjustments to help his tackle out? They both have to fix that. We don't know, but they have to fix that. Too little, too late. What do I mean by too little, too late? I'm talking about the defense. It's nice that we made all these moves. It's nice that we finally brought in the defensive coordinator. One of my concerns is the damage already done with this defense? With some of the young players? Like, can you fix what went wrong with JOK last year? Can you fix what went wrong with Denzel Ward last year? And I know some people have brushed this aside in the offseason, but these were serious issues, especially with Denzel Ward. He's an all-pro player playing with another Pro Bowl player. And both those dudes, John Johnson and Denzel Ward, could not figure out cover two. Could not run it. High schools run it. Colleges run it. They couldn't do it. Couldn't run cover two. Couldn't run quarters. Couldn't run cover three. Couldn't run any zone combination because they just, something happened. Is Jim Schwartz going to be enough to fix all that? Or is the damage done? Are the bad habits already set in stone? Did they wait too long to do something at defensive coordinator? And is that going to have long-term effects and taint some very, very promising talent? That would be a shame, but it happens. The NFL is a delicate game. It's a fickle sport. And getting the right guy in the right place at the right time, that matters. The question is, was this the right time to bring in a new guy, or were they just a little late? Because if they were just a little late, this defense isn't going to be atrocious, but it's not going to be what we want it to be. The same way that, hey, if Deshaun Watson is a little bit below what he was when he played last in 2019, the team's not going to be bad, but they're just going to be slightly below what we want them to be all year. Same thing with the defense. They're going to be slightly below what we want them to be. And the next thing you know, maybe 2 games over 500 is the goal. And we're not talking Super Bowl, and we're not as excited, and we're not talking about the roster the same way, and we're pretty frustrated. Is it too little, too late on the defensive end? Now, they didn't do a little bit to fix the defense. They brought in what? They brought in Shelby Harris. They brought in Dalvin Tomlinson. They brought in Zadarius Smith. They brought in Juan Thornhill. They brought in Ronnie McLeod. They brought a bunch of dudes in, but is it enough? Is the change in coaching staff enough to change the culture of some of these players? Or are there bad habits or some of the bad attitudes from last year? Are those set in stone? Is this team what they are, and we're trying to put a paint of coat over it? Or is Jim Schwartz enough to change it? Some people are more optimistic. Some people are pessimistic on this. The last thing is not explosive. What happens if some of these young guys that we're depending on to break out don't? What if Elijah Moore, we get to the regular season, despite him showing throughout all camp, even in that preseason game, he's ready to take a step. The season starts and we just don't see it. What happens then? What happens then to the future of this team? What if this offense, despite Deshaun playing all right, despite the defense playing all right, still takes forever to score like last year? Still has to dink and dunk and screen and run its way downfield, and they can't score quickly? What if they have the same issues with the explosives? What if Kevin Stefanski's offense is part of the problem? What if that's something that they can't get away from? That this offense still scores slowly, that they still struggle in some areas in the red zone? Well, then obviously you're going to have issues. I do this exercise not to bum you out. I do this exercise not to make you live in a dark world and think of only the negatives. I do this exercise to balance us out, because there is one way of seeing things, right? Or sometimes it could feel like there's only one way of seeing things. And right now in the preseason and the offseason, we're going to be like, hey, optimism goggles. Brown's going to be the best in the world. And it feels great when somebody else says that. What doesn't feel great is when somebody says, hey, this can go wrong. That can go wrong. You need to keep an eye on that and this. Now, the answer isn't to be a pessimist. The answer is to use both, right? Understand what the vision is, what the hope is, while also keeping an eye on some of the things that you know can derail the season. Let's say you're driving a car and you want that car to go 200 miles per hour because you bought it because it goes that fast and you can't wait to rip it down the road. Your determination and hope for that car to hit 200 miles per hour should not make you so blind that you drive 200 miles over a speed bump or over a pothole and destroy the whole damn thing. You got to be able to see the hazards to avoid them, is what I'm saying. You don't want to be moving so fast and so looking so high up and blinded by the optimism that you don't look for the hazards, because then they'll smack you in the face and they'll derail you. So that's why I do this. I have had the blinded by optimism takes before. Some of y'all might say I dropped one a couple weeks ago, but this is why I like to drop the very most optimistic view of this team, which for the first time in a long time, like, I legitimately feel like the Super Bowl's a real possibility for the most optimistic outlook for this team. And, you know, the very pessimistic view of everything that can go wrong that can derail the season, which ironically enough, I would think is like 500, maybe a game under 500 or a game above 500, but we won't feel good about it. But that's why I do this, so we can see the hazards, hopefully avoid the hazards, and then continue on to have a good ass time. But that's it for today. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.